So Abdul Shekoni, all right. Is that some of the call? So I guess it will be taking over from as the mentor for today. Thank you so much, Yunus. Sorry, Yunus, can you hear me? Okay, maybe network.
He's dropped.
Okay, all right. Okay, I could see him on the call still. All right. So the mentor will be taking off from here, and going forward, please let's try to be also very much attentive. This reacts, and let's try to follow through. So over to you, Abdul. Thank you so much for joining in the call. So before you joined, Yunus was taking them through React, how to install React, and showed them how they could install Node.js, and they were at the point of installing the Create React app. That was when you joined. So you could just pick up from there and possibly also give more introduction to the student. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you guys hear me? Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Abdul Gafar Olainka. I'm a front-end developer with 3+ years experience with Next.js and basically everything front-end. So, just like what he said, we are going to be starting with React today. And as we all know, or maybe few of you know, React is currently what is being used to build huge applications out there right now. So for the past few weeks, you guys have been into JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, which are the basics of web development. And I want to hope everybody is very strong and in tune with those three languages, or they are not called languages, but hopefully everybody is in tune with it. So today we're going to start with basically React, and we're going to start from the basics, which is actually knowing what is React. So for now, can you guys see my screen? Reaction if you can see my screen. Okay. So before today, we have been into JavaScript, HTML, CSS, where we can just go to our code editor and write something, and we're going to see it on the browser. But now we have what we are calling React. And from the definition here, it's the library for web and native user interface. So basically what React is giving you the access to actually create high functional web application that are very, very interactive, that communicate with each other fast and very, very to the point. Basically everything you're seeing when you use your phone, the website you go in today, and how it's fast and very, very speedy, you can actually create all of that using React. So from the definition, React lets you build user interface out of individual pieces called components. Create your own React component like thumbnails, like button, video, then combine them into entire screens, pages, or app. So what's the example they are giving us here is this video.js. And as you can see, the video.js is using thumbnail. If I hover on thumbnail, you can see it's highlighting it here. If I hover on the text, you can see the text there and the description. Okay, so while going deep into React like this, let's just scratch through the surface and know what React is. So Yunus has already walked you guys through how to install React and everything about React. But I have also prepared a React application here. You can see it's being hosted on localhost 3000. We're going to walk through all of that today to see how we can actually set that up. But first of all, let's actually go through a modern application to see how everything works. So right here, we are seeing YouTube, which everybody is very, very familiar with. We can see here, and using the definition of what React is, you can see create user interface from what components, where you can actually break components into pieces, join it together to actually create your web application that you can interact with. So using YouTube as a point of reference here, we have a sidebar. on the side. We have this search menu, we have this navigation at the top that you can see. I'm scrolling, I'm being interactive with it, and we basically have the videos and everything about this page. So now, using this example, we can actually know how this was being structured. This YouTube page was being structured. You can see that they have a sidebar component, they have like a menu component, and they have the videos component that actually plays when you click on it. Yes.
All right. So sorry. I think we can't see your YouTube screen, so probably you just share
Oh,
your current tab. Yeah.
sorry, everyone. Yeah, I was only sharing my React tab. Let me just share the whole screen. Let's do that again. Let's just share the entire screen. Okay, are you guys seeing the screen now? All right. So okay, let's start again. So basically, we are seeing YouTube here, for example, and judging by the explanation from React, that React lets you build user interface out of individual pieces called components that you put together to actually make your own application. And we can see for that example here that they have three components called thumbnail, like button, and videos. So judging by this code here, you can see that there is a thumbnail, there is a video, and there is a description, a like button here that you can see. This is the thumbnail, this is the description, and right by the right-hand side is the like button. So using YouTube here as a point of reference, we can actually get a clear idea of what React is actually trying to tell us, that, okay, we can create multiple components, put it together to actually have a reactive and interactive web application. Using this sidebar now, for example, this sidebar could be an entire separate component, while this menu and these tabs at the top of it could be a separate component. Then we have the videos component that you interact with to actually play your videos. Now, we have gone through JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, where we actually write a bunch of functions, a bunch of HTML, and a bunch of styling to actually put it together. What the simplicity that React gives you is to actually make your work as a developer very, very easier when it comes to reacting with application. Now, as you can see me, I'm on this search bar and I'm searching for something. Let's say React course, for example, and I will come here and I will click on this search. This me clicking on this search button is an interaction that I'm having with the application, with this YouTube website. And it is very, very easy to actually do that with React, compare with you doing it with native JavaScript. So that is just like an overview of what React is. And we're going to go back into the explanation now and go into, let's look at the documentation of how to learn React. Now, welcome to the React documentation. This page will give you an introduction to the 80% concepts that you will use on the daily basics. You will learn how to create a next component, how to add markup style, how to display data, how to render condition and list, how to respond to events, and update the screen. So basically what I just did now, this event, this me clicking React course tutorial or something like that, me clicking on this button is an event, like is an action that I'm performing. So we're going to learn basically all of that, how to share data between components. So this sidebar might be a standalone component, but anything I'm clicking here, it should be reflecting here. So how does this guy speak to this guy? How do they connect together? So we are going to dive into all of that as the course go on. But for today, we're going to just talk about the introduction, go through everywhere about React, and any questions that you guys may have, then we can clarify that. So we have creating and nesting components. React are made out of components. So you can see that this word components are being repeated quite often. So basically, that is to let you know that, okay, everything that's not basically everything. So what your application is, your website are, they are just bunch of components pieced together to actually give you that UI, which you can see here is the user interface that has its own logic and appearance. So each one has its own logic. This sidebar logic is different from this main page logic. This search functionality up here is different from these tabs. So basically everything in between together. Okay. So now let's go into, now you can React component a JavaScript function that returns a markup. So once we go into our code, we're going to talk about this in depth and how to get you guys familiar with the term JSX. So I know you're coming from the HTML world and JavaScript world, but there's a new, this is like a new world for React where you're going to learn about new terms and new methodologies and new ways of actually building applications. So some of you might be familiar with it. For those that are not, you're very much welcome to this. So basically, that is what we're going to learn about React, the basic of React, the interactivity and how to handle events and everything. So let's talk about the installation that Yunus has actually walked you guys through. So React has been designed from the start. Okay, sorry. Okay, React has been designed from the start for gradual adoption. You can use as little or as much React as you need. So it's basically giving you the ability to actually build whatever you want, whether small or very, very large. And we know the example we see here, YouTube is a very, very large application. And I can also use React to just actually build a small website that actually just display my products. React can actually is the best for both worlds. So how whether you want to get a taste of React, add some interactivity to an HTML page, or start a complex React powered app. So basically, if you want something very, very complex, or you want something very, very simple, React is the best for you to actually start your journey in web development. Okay, in this chapter, we're going to learn how to start a new React project, add React to an existing project, how to set up your code editor, and how to install React dev tools. So we're going to leave the React documentation and go to our VS Code. But for now, let's just walk through starting a new React app. So, okay, we have a project. For example, we want to build a website for a client that is a, let's say, a real estate company, and they just give us a document. Okay, build this application for me, build this website for me. I want to have the colors popping around, everything talking to each other, and just very, very beautiful. So how do you start your React from scratch for the first time? So if you want to build a new React scratch or a new website, we recommend picking one of the powered framework popular in the community. Now we're going to talk about this. So React is like an umbrella. Is like the big brother wrapping around other frameworks. So you can want to create something that you necessarily do not need everything about React. So you just need some part of React, or you can need more of React. So there are frameworks out there that you can use rather than using React. So let's not go into that for now, but we're going to go into that as the course go on. So we have one of those frameworks is Next.js, which is one of the most popular framework, one of the best. We have Remix, we have Gatsby, and we have Expo, and there is also another one called Vite. So while all these are frameworks built on top of React, React is still the umbrella that captures all of them together. Okay, so let's keep this documentation and let's go into some practical now. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see the VS Code? Yeah, all right. So before I joined, I have already created a new React application because it takes a while to actually install. I just prepare it for you and for you guys. But we're going to walk through the terminal to see how we can actually start that. So let's go back to our real estate company that we want to build an application for them. And they said, okay, we should build a website, fully functional and beautiful. Now, once you open your VS Code for the first time, let's start again from the beginning. Once you open your VS Code for the first time and you want to start developing the application, you will need a folder or a file where you're actually storing that website. Okay, so let's come to our documents. I created a new one here called Fitech, and let's just add a new one, and let's call it real estate. Okay, so now again, let's take that from the beginning. We open our VS Code folder, we open the document, and we go to our Fitech folder, and we open the real estate folder here on our terminal. So now that opens the folder, and you can see here we have a real estate folder here. To get started with React, you need to install React first of all. How do you install React? Now you have a terminal on every single folder that you're currently in. You can either open it by coming down here and just dragging this up, or you can come to this your tooltip at the top and just click on terminal, and it's going to open it for you. So using our directory, as you can see, we are in the Fitech app, and we are in the real estate folder. So how do we install React on our application to get started to building functional websites? So you can go back to the documentation to actually read through it. And this installation is for Next.js. But for installing React, it is Fitech. Okay. So you can see this command here, npx create React app, then the name of your application. So npx is a command that comes with npm. So all of you are familiar with Node.js when you were creating your HTML and CSS and JavaScript classes. So npm is a command that comes with Node.js that you can use to install libraries on your application that you want to use. We're going to go deep into that later, but this is the command when you want to create a new React application. npx create React app. This is very, very important. You get the spelling right. Then the name of your application or your website. We can say estate, or you can just call it anything. Maybe the name of the company is Dage, or the name of the company, basically any name that you want to give it to actually recognize that application. Now, once you do that and you click enter, it's going to, now let's come back to this one. So it's going to run all this, and it's going to tell you it's starting the development server, compiled successfully. And now this is very, very important, because this is where you're going to make all your developments, all your work, and all your changes. It tells you you can now view my React application in the browser using this URL, localhost 3000. So what happens now when you click on localhost 3000? You should be able, it opens your browser that now opens this web page for you. Now, localhost 3000 is basically a local port on your machine. This is running only on your machine. It does not run anywhere else, where you can now use to make any updates. Now we have this interface, we have this screen, and it has a logo, and we can see it's the logo for the React team themselves, and it gives us this description: edit, source, and save to reload, or you can click here to learn React, which brings you back here. Now let's get started, and let's dive deep into React for the first time. Okay, so Once you run that npx create react app, then the name of your project, it creates all this folder for you. It creates this template folder for you that you can now use to make interaction and changes. First of all, it creates a node module for you. Okay, Rufai?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Is it after we click on the local stuff? That's when it will create all those file.
No. So
Okay.
after you have run npx create react app, right? Are you hearing me? Okay, so after you've run npx create react app and it compiled successfully and everything, so let's do that again. Let me kill this terminal. So I have run npx create react app, the name of my project, my react app, and it will generate all this for me. So okay, I think I missed that step. Yeah, I think you're right, Rufai. Now to start your project for the first time, to be able to see it on the browser, then you run. I don't want to come into this to start explaining this to you guys, but I think for me to show this, I would tell you where it's coming from. So let's just walk through what the installation did. It creates a node modules file for us. Now, what this node module is are basically dependencies and libraries that are being built on top of React. So any library that we're using in our application gets to come here. You don't touch this node modules folder. As you can see, it is grayed out. You do not interact with it. It's just stored. It stores all your libraries and everything that you're using to actually make your application work. If you go in here, you're going to get super confused and you don't want to mess with anything here. So just close this and know that this node modules on every application that you're creating is a no-go area. Now it also creates a public folder for us. So what is this public folder? This public folder are basically where we store our assets, our images, our fonts, our JSON files, our text. As you can see here, we have a favicon. What exactly are favicons? If you go back to your browser, favicons are these icons that you see beside on your browser at the top right hand corner. So you can see for YouTube, it is this red play button. For Google Meet, it is this Google icon. For this website, it is this icon, and same too for here. So that is what favicon is. If you click on it, you can see it is that React logo at the top right hand corner for your website. Index.html. Now, for React, this is your root file. This is the root of your application. This is where everything is being built on top. Now, you will come here to actually change some things if you are working on a large application. For example, the name, the content. If you are familiar with SEO and if you go to your browser and you search real estate company in Abuja, why do you think you get to see some website and you don't get to see some other website? So basically, you get to make all those changes here. We are going to go through that if time permits as the course continues. So we have a little header here that is called React application. And if we go back to our browser, we are seeing something here called React app. That is where this title is coming from. So the content page that you're actually seeing on your laptop, I don't think it's visible on the phone, but on your laptop, that's name that you see at the top of the browser when the page is dormant, like YouTube now, this Start React app, this Meet, and also this one. So this content at the top, this write-up at the top of it, you can format that and change that for your own application. So for our own, we can say is the real estate. This is just an example. And basically, everything that you need about your React application comes into this body. So, like I said earlier, you only change this if you want to make a little bit of either SEO or your linking or your rerouting or every other thing, which is quite in depth. We're not going to go through all of that yet, because this file is very, very crucial about everything about your application, how your search engine works, how your font loads, how everything goes all about. So we're not going to change much. You can just read what it says, and if we want to go deep into it, we're going to go back to the documentation and read how we can make edits to this file. Okay, so the next one, like I said, the public folder is where you store basically assets, images, fonts, text file, JSON files, and the rest. So we can see here we have an image, a logo here, and we have another logo here. Even without going deep, we can know that, okay, this logo in this public folder, it is what is rendering here. So this logo that is spinning, it's being gotten from this file here. So we're going to go into that. Manifest JSON, this is just a JSON file that was created from the React app to tell it basically what the application is about. Again, the short name, the name, creates React app sample, your favicon, which is pointing to the favicon, the size, and your theme color and your background color. And they have a robot text file. This is dormant. You don't basically need this to do anything. So now we have a source folder. So this is where our application lives. This source folder is where everything about the website is going to be stored. App.css, you guys have gone through your CSS class and you guys know what this is about, how to define classes, how to define media queries, how to define keyframes, and how animation works in your CSS. So that's what this app.css is. If, again, we're going to talk about that further along the road. What styling do you want to use for your application? Do you want to use CSS, or do you want to use a library, which is a famous one, which is called Tailwind? We're going to walk through all of that. Then we have app.js. Now, this is the base and the root of our application that is showing on our browser. As you can see, there is a header here that is pointing to class app header that is coming from this CSS file, app.header, that has a background, a display, basically your styling. You guys are familiar with that. Then it has an image tag that is pointing to logo. Where is this logo coming from? This logo is coming from the public file, that is logo.svg. And we have a text here called edit, source, save to reload. Now, if you go back to our browser and you can see this image and this edit, then you can now start making changes here. Let's say, for example, I want to remove all of this and I want to say, welcome to React class. Once I save this and I go back to my browser and I do, okay, sorry, I killed the terminal just to show you guys that example. Okay, before we go there, let's just walk through every other thing. So we have an app.test. So this is where you want to write tests. These are for huge applications where you're writing your test for every single thing that you're doing. Then we have our index.css. Now, the difference between index.css and app.css is index.css is referencing to your root for your root file, index.js. So index.js basically install and renders your main application with the React DOM, the Web Vitals, and you can see this React DOM is coming from a package that we installed together when we did our npx create React app. And we have a strict mode that is coming from the React team. And then we are rendering this app that we just saw just now, which is this that shows our image and welcome to the React class. This guy. So you do not touch this index.js except you want to have a little bit of more interactivity and something more complex. But your index.js has already rendered your app. All your changes for your application should actually be pointing to your app.js. As time goes on, we're going to see how to create components and how to join them together. So that's basically that for the source. So this is where we're going to be working the most. This is our source folder. I just want to walk you guys through all the folders. Now we have git ignore. So git ignore, you guys, if you guys are familiar with GitHub and how to push your code to GitHub, after you're finished building, you push to GitHub, you deploy it, and you actually view it on a domain. Now, git ignore is like telling your folder structure, or telling GitHub that when I am making an update to my GitHub and I want to push my code to GitHub, do not send these files. So any files that are being included in this git ignore does not go to your GitHub, if you guys are familiar with what GitHub is. So if now I said slash node modules, I included it in my git ignore. What this would do is when I make a commit or I make a push to my GitHub, this node modules is not going to go to GitHub that everybody can see. Your GitHub might be private or public. That means nobody is going to see this node module, only you that is working on it locally. Then I have this PMP file, I have this JS file. For testing, I have coverage. For production, I have build, and basically all your local env files for both production and development. So e.ignore is very, very important. For example, if you have sensitive information that you don't want people to see, you add it in here. It will not get bundled together with your code that goes to the web. So now package-lock.json. So this is a very, very huge file that houses all our libraries, all our dependencies. You can scroll from here. It's going to be very, very confusing. You basically do not interact with the lock file. You are only going to interact with the package.json file. So now, this package.json file is the file that houses all your dependencies and libraries. What are dependencies? What are libraries? Sorry, Isa Abdullah?
Sorry to ask, sir. So what's the difference between React and JavaScript? What's the difference?
There is no difference between React and JavaScript. JavaScript is inside React. So the JavaScript class you guys did earlier did not have any framework or any library. It is just pure plain JavaScript. But that same JavaScript that you guys did, you are also going to write it here, but in a different format, in a well-structured format, if I can put it like that. So there is no difference between JavaScript and React. They are not competing against each other. JavaScript is also living in React, but JavaScript is a standalone language on its own. So React is adopting JavaScript, and it's giving you the ability to write your JavaScript in a way that is more easier, if I can say it like that. But we're going to go deep into the JavaScript that you guys wrote on your JavaScript class and the JavaScript that we're going to write here. Okay, someone raised their hand. Who raised their hand? I'm coming.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your voice is kind of dim. Oh, I can hear you.
So where I'm actually confused is because the app we have there, the index and the app, generally having the JS extension. That's where I'm confused.
JS extension?
They're having the JS, all of them. I think that's where I'm confused.
This .js.
Yes, yeah, you get my question.
Yes, this app.js index.js is the file, is the extension. So when you were doing your HTML, you did index.html, right? Chuku Obdi.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir,
I
we
see.
did this. We did it.
You said?
Yes, we did
Yes,
it,
sir,
sir.
we did it, sir.
Yeah. So when you were doing your HTML, you did index.html. When you were doing your CSS, like this app.css now, for example. Now, .js is telling you that it's a JavaScript file. So the way you have .html, .css, you also have dot.
I know about that one.
Excuse me, sir, can I?
Yeah,
Probably
Ahmad.
they are expecting to see dot react, right? So they were thinking maybe probably JavaScript is quite different from React. So that's the clarification you need to make, sir.
No, just like what I said, JavaScript, React is JavaScript. So it's not like the way you guys have done JavaScript, you're done with JavaScript. Now you're coming to React. No, JavaScript, React adopts JavaScript.
Okay, just
Again,
like the continuation, sir.
you said?
It's just like the continuation of JavaScript.
Exactly. So what you
Yeah.
are seeing, your browser that you're seeing, and your browser on your phone, your Chrome, is actually JavaScript. So the commands that you give it, the click this button, the go to these files, those are JavaScript functions that are actually happening. Do we understand? Let's not confuse JavaScript and React. React is not a new world. It's a new world when you're developing, but when you are interacting with the web, it is still JavaScript. Are we together?
So what's the purpose? Are we developing an application or a web?
What is the what?
What's the purpose, sir? Are we developing an application or a web app?
Sorry, Tali, can you mute your mic? I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, sir. I say, what is the purpose, sir?
The purpose of
Are we developing an application or a website, sir? Inside
this,
React.
it's for developing a website, but there is also React Native for developing mobile application. So you understand the website you go to on your Chrome browser, google.com, youtube.com, and livescore.com. Those are websites. But the app that you use on your phone, your WhatsApp,
Yeah, there's web application, sir.
yeah, there's web application and there's
That's what
mobile.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Are we developing a web application or I don't really
Yeah,
understand.
yes. We are just walking through the introduction to make everybody familiar with React. But you are also you are definitely going to use React to actually build web application. And I'm going to walk you through a web application that I've actually built to actually show you the powers of React and how you can actually use it to do a lot of things. But for the basics, we're just taking the step one after the other. But React is still JavaScript. Everything about JavaScript is inside React. So your JavaScript, your CSS and your HTML, like I said, React is like an umbrella that has made it easier for you to actually build web application. So Talhi, can you hear me? Tali, if you are speaking, I can't hear you.
I think it's network issue, sir. Network issue, sir.
Okay. So we're going to come back to this, our source folder, and we're going to go into it in depth into it. So now we are currently on our package.json. What is this package.json about? So this is what houses all your dependencies and all your libraries that is being bundled together in your application. So we have an object here. So our package.json creates an object for us and houses all this inside. So what are basically all this name, version, private, dependencies? So I've mentioned dependencies multiple times, and I've mentioned libraries multiple times. So name is basically the name of your application, the version of your application. Private, if it's true, if it's public, or if it's private. So these are private, telling you that it is true. Dependencies. So what are dependencies? Dependencies are basically all what your application is running on top. So we have libraries and we have dependencies. We have dependencies too. So our application, you can see React here. We are using React version 18.3, meaning we have React installed in this application. We have the React DOM, we have the React scripts, and we have the Web Vitals. All this came together when I ran that one script, npx, this script, npx create React app, my React app. So this installed all of this. So now we have this script. So what are scripts? Scripts are basically what you are actually going to use to test your application. Isa?
No, sorry, sir. Your screen is not displaying well. It's not clear.
You guys are not seeing my screen as I'm scrolling.
It's not clear.
Okay, let's try that.
Why zoom in? Zoom in.
But the screen is clear. We can see the screen here.
Are you guys seeing as I'm scrolling?
Yes, we
I'm
can see.
seeing everything.
Okay. Isa, are you there now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm there.
Rufai? Okay, so we have a script called start, a script called test, a script called build, and a script called eject. So what is start? So the start script is what you use to actually run your application on your local machine. So now we have start, we have build, and we have test. So how do we start our application? You use npm start. So it looks like how I explained what npm is. Npm is a node module, is as you guys have gone through Node.js. So once you install Node.js, it gives you the ability to use npm to actually interact with both your application and other libraries out there in the web. So we use npm to run our script. So now it is telling us that if we want to start our application on our local server, we should run npm together with a script name here. So what does start means? Start means we are starting our application on our local machine. Build means we want to build it to actually deploy it to a server so that it can be available to all the browsers in the world. Test is you, after you have write all your code, your components, you have joined everything together, you will run npm test using ESLint to see if all your code is correct. There are no errors, no components that are not being used, no props that are not being passed properly. We're going to go into that in depth. But now we're just scratching the surface and letting you guys understand the basics of React. So now we're going to run our npm start. So if I run npm and I run the start, when I click OK, it's going to run my application, which is, as you can see, my app version 0.1, the script, and we're starting our development server. So you can see on its own, it opens my browser and it's going to localhost 3000. So you allow it to load and you can see now it is loading our main application. You can see this image, and remember I changed the name from that edit code to welcome to React class. Isa, do we need to install any extensions, sir? Extension, is it for your VS Code or extension for the main application? There's an extension for your VS Code itself, which you can go to the extension tab. Or are you referring to React? Extension for React. There are basically no extension for React. You can only install what you need. So like I said, I have mentioned dependencies and I have mentioned libraries. You can install libraries. There are a bunch of libraries out there in the web to make your development easier. For example, we have Tailwind, where you can use to style. You can install Tailwind. We have TypeScript. We're going to go to TypeScript too. So basically, extensions are different from libraries. I think you mean libraries, not extensions. So when you are installing libraries, you need to know the libraries that you need for your application. Then you come to your terminal and you install it. We're going to walk through all of that again. So for now, let's just go through our application. Now we have this localhost 3000. We have this icon that is just spinning. And remember, we have this text that I changed to welcome to React class. Now let's go back there. So if I close all of this, and remember I said we are working on our source folder. And this app.js is basically what is rendering on our screen after it has been rendered on the index.js that now renders this app. So you can see app, the name is being rendered here, that is now being rendered on your browser. So now let's talk about this app.js that you guys are referring to. So coming from the HTML world and how you do your index.html, you do your page, your file name.html, JS is an extension of JavaScript. Same way we have .html, same way we have .css. It is just telling you what that file is about. CSS is for styling. You cannot create a .css files and say you want to write HTML. You cannot create a .html file and say you want to start writing CSS. Same way we have .js. JS is basically JavaScript file. In the React world, like I said, React is a whole different umbrella for everything web. In the React world, the .js is a component file that allows you to now interact together with your application or your browser per se. So now, while we're getting started, I'm going to delete all of these headers. Once I remove it and I save it, if I go back to my application, as you can see, everything is blank. Now let's go back to our app and let's do a p tag. You guys are familiar with the p tag, and let me say hello, welcome to React class. So that text that I just wrote is now what is being rendered in the screen. So I have removed the boilerplate that I got from React. And also, if you look at the top right-hand corner, if you remember that index.html that we changed from React to our real estate company. So this is where it's now going to show our SEO and everything. You still need to make some permutation to make that work. Where I am confused is where if you see some React picture, you will be seeing, I'm coming, let me read this message. Where I'm confused, if you see, you will be seeing JSX. Now, you won't be confused because that is where we are going to next. So Chuku, you were just a little bit faster than us. But basically, first of all, we all are all familiar with the file convention .js now. Now, let's come to this top and let's see what is going on in this file. We have made some changes here and we don't understand what's going on. You can see we imported logo from ./svg that we used to render the image earlier. So let me go back to what we had before.
Sir, please, if you can hear me, can you just indicate with a reaction? Let me be sure. Okay, probably it's from the mentor's end. Let me get across. Okay, let's just hold on for some minutes so I could reach out to the mentor and so he could join back. All right, so the mentor will be joining us shortly in probably maybe a minute or some seconds. So let's just hold on. And so. All right, welcome
Okay.
back, sir. Yeah, welcome.
Yes. So sorry about that. My network tripped off. Okay, let's continue. My Wi-Fi went off. Okay, so we were okay. We were looking at the website. Now let's go back to this to actually see what is going on here. So I was explaining what import is. So import is a general term. So this import, you are going to use it to either bring in a file or a library extension into a component that you want to use. So I can come in here and I said I want to use something from React. I can say import use state from React. So now this import is a general name that you can use to bring in something into your application, into your component, sorry. And you can see this logo is being gotten from /logo.svg and it's being imported. Same with the CSS file. So this import is very, very important. No pun intended. It's very, very important when you want to, let's say, for example, now I have this app.js and I want to display it inside index.js. As you can see, it is being used with the import terminology. That is what import is. So it's always at the top of your application. Now, we have this thing called function app. What is it? Remember, in the React explanation, it tells you that React are what functional components that are being used to return components in, Jethro.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Please,
Good morning, Jethro.
I have a question.
Yes, boss.
You are talking about this import, and I noticed that ./logo.svg is a file path, and
Yeah,
it's not found in the source folder. So where are we importing from?
the source folder.
Like, I'm not seeing it there. So you
These
imported.
are the two files. The logo
Okay.
/svg. This is it. Are you see my mouse?
Okay. I did not take
And
note.
this is
Thank you. Yeah.
app.css. Are you following?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
following.
All right,
Yeah.
that's perfect. It means you're following well. Now we have again this function app. What is this function? What does that mean? Judging by using React example or their definition, they tell you that okay, React gives is a functional component that you can use to render your pages, your components, and basically everything. So in the olden legacy ways of when React first come into the limelight, we were using class components to actually render our components, and that was kind of the old ways, the early 2010s to 2015s ish years. So now they're now upgraded to using functional components. Now, functional components are just functions, but they are React functions. You can still come in here to write your normal JavaScript function and say it on submit. This is still a valid function, but it's very, very different from this function, because this function and this function, they are the same function, the same name. I call this one on submit, this one is called app, and I'm calling the parentheses and I'm opening the brackets, but it's still basically the same thing with this one. So why is this one not showing on our web page? There is a very, very important term that React is giving you, and it's using, first of all, this return. It's also using this JSX. And then if you look at the bottom here, there is an export default app. So I have written this function. I have returned a JSX inside it. We're going to come back to, I think it's Isa that asked that question of him seeing JSX, and I'm talking about JSX too. It's returned JSX, and we are exporting it as the default from this file. This export, it is still very, very, this export of me exporting this app, it's telling me that this app function, it is the default export that is exporting from what? This app.js file. So if I go to my index again and I do import app, I can only import app from this file because it is my default export. This function on submit, it is only enclosed to this file. So this on submit cannot come here. But my app function, when I call this export default, it's telling me that it can now be used and rendered on other places in the application. Are we clear with that? Now we're going to, as we go on, you guys should just remember that this is introduction. We are going to go into the deep parts, and we're going to go into the parts that you guys, the brainy part, and the parts that we make us think and wish, why did we, you understand? So as time goes on, we're going to go really, really deep. But now let's just understand the concept, because the concept and the foundation is very, very important for us as we go on. Now, function app. I'm exporting default app. I am returning it. Remember, this return is very, very important if you are rendering JSX. Now, I am using it to display in my root folder app. Fine and simple. Now, let's get started. If I delete this, my function, and okay, let me not delete this, but let's go on. Now, Isa asks a very important question that he has been seeing something called .gsx around all his React videos or wherever he's seeing React. So what is JSX? What is, again, I've explained that JS is basically JavaScript extension, but we also have a JSX extension. Now let's do this. How does React differ from other? How does React differ from other JavaScript library? Can you explain concept of stage and props? Isa, again, we're going to go deep into that. State and props are part of the curriculum for this React class, and we're going to dive deep into that as time goes on. But for now, today, this morning class, maybe we can dive into that in the afternoon class. This morning class, let's just understand the introduction and the concept to React. But this question is very, very good and is very, very straightforward. Can you explain the concept of state and props in React? We are going to do that as time goes on. So how does React differ from other JavaScript library / framework? Now, you asked this question, but let's go back to the definition of React that we saw on our, when we were installing it. Okay, so now I'm looking for that main explanation coming that tells you that think React, I think is the installation. Okay, so now this is it. Now you asked, how does React differ from other JavaScript library and framework? Just using this explanation, for example, if you want to build a new React app, a new website fully with React, we recommend picking one of React's powered frameworks. So you can see this highlighted text with the question you ask, how does it differ from other JavaScript library and framework? React is, again, like I said, the umbrella that all frameworks are being built on top. Not all, but the major popular frameworks are being built on top. You can use React without a framework, which is what we're currently doing. We are currently using React straight on. However, we have found that most apps and sites eventually build solutions to common problems, such as code splitting, routing, data fetching, and generating HTML. These problems are common to UI libraries, not just React. So React themselves in their documentation are telling you to use other frameworks when you want to actually build web application. They are not telling you to leave React. Use other frameworks that are built on top of React. So this is a question of how does it differ from other JavaScript library and framework? It does not differ. React, again, is like an umbrella that is used to house other frameworks and libraries. Now, it goes further to explain, to giving you list of frameworks that you can use. By starting with a framework, we can get started with React quickly, avoid essentially building your own framework later. React themselves on their docs are telling you, use one of this. If you want to build apps that gives you solution with code splitting, routing, data fetching. So all these terms are going to sound foreign to most of you. That is why I wanted us to take it one after the other. But answering what Isa said, React is a JavaScript library on its own that houses other frameworks. So now it's telling you can use Next.js. We have gone through this before. You can use Remix. You can use Gatsby. You can use Expo, and you can also use another one called Vite. So that is basically what's a difference between a framework and a library or a language. React frameworks are built on top of React. So it is not different. It is different when you start writing the code for it. But in terms of how we are using it now, on how we are defining our function, our classes, is basically still the same. What are the key features and benefits of using React? Now, the key features and benefits of using React, plain React, without any framework. The benefits are not that much, because when you build your application with plain React and you go and build your application with other framework built on top of React, you will realize that, okay, those frameworks are kind of more straightforward compared to React. Let's just use this to understand the basis of what React is while we go ahead into deep questions and deep knowledge seeking. Jethro.
Yeah, sorry, sir. I just have a concern.
Yeah.
Um, please, there are people who are actually very, very new to this concept,
Yeah.
right? And this is the first class that we are doing this. And then
Yeah.
I know that some people might not be new to the concept, like they know these things or they know some of these things before now.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So if
understand
they
you.
can give us the opportunity to flow with the class, and then
Yeah.
with time, maybe what they are trying to ask now, we can
Yeah.
learn it later so that we'll have
Exactly.
a very free flow in the class. Because actually going back and forth with some of the questions is actually distorting what we are learning.
Yeah,
So
very,
if
very,
yeah,
very true. And I've mentioned that before, that this is an introduction to React. So this is the basics of React. We are starting this with the mindset that okay, all of us here does not understand React. We're just hearing about it for the first time. So how does it work? What and what do I need to put together? And like you said, there are other people that are very, very familiar with the term, or they have gone far in their own learning journey. So while I try to answer their question, I am also keeping in mind that this is an introduction class and I'm taking everything from scratch. So with that in mind, to our more advanced students, let's just keep this more introductive and let's just interact with one another on the introduction level of things. The state and the props are very, very not too advanced, but they are too advanced for what we are currently doing now. And even me, myself, when I started doing React, when I heard state and props for the first time, I was very, very confused. Like coming from HTML and CSS, it is very, very confusing. So let's just understand the basics of React on this first class. Hopefully by Thursday or in the evening, afternoon class, we are going to go a little bit deeper. But for now, let's understand and let's just go on. At the end of the class, I'm going to tax everybody with some few tests and some few examples, and you guys will come up on the call and answer. So don't think the rest of you are going to be free. I'm seeing some names here that I'm going to call at the end of the class to actually ask some questions. The likes of Aisha and the rest. So keep in mind that this is not a only me talking class. Everybody is going to chip in. So let's all understand what we're doing here. Okay, so back. Okay, Isa.
So sorry, sir. I don't know whether you can share the link to us. What you just displayed now.
What?
The link. What you just displayed now on React.
What I just is it the main documentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, this is
Yeah.
it's basically this. So let me drop in
Oh,
the group chat.
okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's continue. All right. Again, we have explained function components, exporting it being rendered on other screens. Now, somebody asked that GXS question, which is where we are going to next. So I want you guys to notice a few difference here. I am in an app.js file, and you guys are all familiar with HTML elements, your div, your header, your images, your P, your A tag, your span, and all the rest. This is a JS file, but when I come here and I say span, I don't see anything. When I come here and I say header, it's just giving me a text for header. Now, let's start by create Rufai. Rufai, you raise your hand.
Sorry, if you're hearing me, can you please just zoom in a little bit? My network here is
Okay,
bad, although
Control
I don't know
plus.
whether you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Is this okay? All right. So that is one. Now let's go ahead to create not just our first component, but also understand the concept of JSX. So what is JS and what is JSX? JS JavaScript, but we are rendering div classes here, we're rendering HTML classes here. But it is also JX that we can use to write our normal function when we want to perform something. I want to say, I want to do click button, for example. This is also a function. This is a proper function that can be used to actually do any functionalized action. But now, in our source, again, we're going to talk about how to structure your components. But for now, let's just create all components on our root folder here. Let's create a new component and let's call it test. Now, there is a difference between JS, as you guys have seen, and a file name called JSX. Now, I created a new file called JSX, and you can see it is very, very different from this. Our normal JS is the React and the JavaScript code icon, but JSX is giving us a React icon. Now, this is trying to tell us now that this is a JSX component that now comprises of both JavaScript and JSX elements, which is our normal HTML. Now let's go ahead and create our function. We can come here and we can say, okay, we are creating, this is how to create function. We give it the name function, we give it the name test, we do this, then we open it up. We have successfully created a function. But can we now use this function inside of this place? The question, can we use this function inside of this place? I want to now say, okay, let me import test. I am not seeing any tests. If I say it dot slash, I say I'm importing test from here. Now, what will happen if I come here? Now, let's see how we imported our app from here. You can see it's rendered, it opened a tag and it put up a self-closing tag. Oh yeah, let's do the same here. Let's put it under this header here. And let's see test. Let's do this. And let's save our application. Okay, now let's go back to our browser. Now you can see that there's an error on our browser. A bunch of errors that is telling us uncut runtime error. Element is invalid. Now, again, when I see something, I just want you guys to understand that as you go on, we are going to talk about it in depth. Now, when you are building application and your browser or your development server breaks like this, that it's giving you this bunch of errors, the best thing, and it's also part of the learning process, is for you to actually read the errors and understand what the errors are. So now it's giving us this runtime error. Element type is invalid. Expected a string for built-in components or class function components, but got an object. Now, what does that tell us? It's telling us that this our function test that we are importing in this our app, it's received in an object, but it is expecting a component. And if I now go ahead and use the same way that we did our app, okay, let's write our return. Let's do this. And we save. Will that clear our error? No. It is now telling us that export default imported text was not found in dash text. So if you are developing and you are like I am, sharp, I do function test and I come and imported it here. Now it breaks and it tells me. It is now telling us that this our test component is missing this our export default. Do you want to know why it's showing this error? There are two things I'm going to explain. Number one, this test component, it wants to know which are we defaulting, which function are we exporting. Why? Because I can have bunch of components here. I can say messages. I can open it. I can say another function. I can say click me. I can do this. But now on my app dot, I am now importing tests from here. It is now asking me which one exactly am I even exporting? And if you can remember, this test is not basic, it doesn't necessarily have to be named test. I can come here and name it messages. Then I render it. It is still going to work. Don't think because I do function test here, meaning I have to now import test, only test here. It's not that. But it's now pointing to the file name. This is what is most important, where it is coming from. This our test.jsx file. Now, this our test.js, I have 3 components. But the app.js does not know which one does it want to render, irrespective of the name. Now, let's come here now and let's give this a name that it is not a function name. Let's come here and say, let's say help. It still accepts it. I can still import help from there and render it. But as you can see here, there is no help. So how does app.js know that this is the import that it is supposed to import from here if we have component like this? Because believe you me, you can have multiple components in one function. Now there are 2 things. Let's start from the beginning. Let's do our export defaults and let's do tests. Now I am exporting a default of test. Let me put a file, a write up here called test. Now, if I come here and I do import, you can see it is now giving me a chance for me to autocomplete it from test. But before that, I did not default it as the default export. If I come here and I say test, you can see that there is nothing there. It does not know which one is test because I did not export anything from this file. But going further, and now I export my test and I put my test name. Now I come here and I say TE. It has already given me autocomplete because it knows that a test component is being exported from this page here. Now I can come here and I can import it. If I come here, I change help, I change it to test, and I save my file. If I now check my browser again, you can see at the bottom left here, after this guy, there is a text called test. So that is what these components that we just created here. But now we have these 2 other components, but it is only knowing about this one in our app.js. Why? Because it is what I exported as the default. Now, that is one way of exporting. And when exporting default, it is mostly used for pages. We're going to get into that as we start building pages and our routing. But now I want to remove this export.default. I don't want to export tests now. I want to export the 3 of them at once, and I want to render them here. How do I do that? Let me clean this, and let me clean this. Now I have three functions. I want to use test, message, and click me. I want it to be visible on this our app.js. On our test now, I have a test function that is rendering test. I have a message. Let me also render message. And I also have a click me. Let's also render click me. So now, how now do I now put these 3 of this function inside this app.js? The first one, I said there are 2. The first one we did was this export default that you can only use to export one function from this file. Now, I want to export all 3. I just go to front of this function and put export in front of it. The 3 of them, I put what? Export in front of them. So now, what does this mean? I am exporting all these functions individually from each other. I do not need this export default of what? Messages, or another export default of text. You can't even have it. You can only have one. You can see the error there. It cannot have multiple default exports. But I need these three functions in my app.js. So I put export in front of it. Now I can access this component, this function, and this function anywhere in my application. Now let's render it here. If I call my good old friend imports and I say test, you can see it's also auto-completing it for me. Test. Now, the difference between the first import and the second import, if you guys were paying attention, is it now has this coily brackets surrounding it. That is now telling you now that it is an individual export function from this file, meaning there can either be more or there can be none. It can be only him. The initial import that I import from test, it did not have this. If I remove this, it did not have this. But now, when I import from test, it's now added this curly braces for me. It is now telling me now that I can now also import the rest of those functions that I've created inside here. So if I put my comma and I put my control space, now it's giving me click me, and it's also giving me messages. So that way, I can come here and say test. I render it, and I also render messages, and I render click me. I save, and I've saved this page too. Now, if I go back to my browser, now I'm seeing three texts. They are sitting beside each other. If you can see it here at the bottom, I have test, I have messages, and I have click me. All these three texts that you're seeing together are individual functions living on their own. Yes, Rufai.
Sorry, can you just hide that stop sharing this thing? Can you hide it so that then go
Okay,
back
are you guys
to
seeing it?
what you just
Okay,
showed
sorry.
us?
Sorry, I did not know it was visible on your end. Okay, can you guys see it now? So as you can see, there is a test, there is a message, and there is a click me. All these are individual functions living on their own. Test does not know about message. Message does not know about click me. Neither does anyone know about each other, but they are all coming from the same file, test.jsx, and I am rendering them inside my app.jsx. Now, let's remove this header. So that's that import that came together with our React. Let's remove it so the whole page can be for us. So if I go back, exactly now the whole page, I have tests, I have messages, and I have click me. So I now have the ability to do anything that I want in this function, and also in this function, and all of them can be separate from one another. So now let's just delete this. Let's go on with. So you guys are familiar with the concept of imports, exports, and creation of functional components and how you import it and render it where you need it. So that might be a question at the end of the session to probably anybody. I see Fahad. I don't know. I see Fatima. So questions can be coming. So get ready and ask questions when you don't understand. So now let's go back to our function exports defaults tests. Let's go back to the one that we know. So now what happens now? I have export default and I save it. But now I did not remove it from this parenthesis. Will that work? If you come here to your browser, you also have another error, just like how I explained for you. Exporting a function inline and exporting it default are two different things. The way you interact with it is separate. Just like how we have seen where we exported all those three functions. Now we are exporting just one. But now we are using the old method to import it, and it does not know these parentheses because it is only him that I am exporting from this function, and it doesn't have any brother or any sister. So why am I putting this parenthesis? We can go ahead to remove it. And when we save it, our error should be gone. And on our web page, we are now seeing the test. So that is creating functions, functional components, and what? Rendering it. Now, let's go back to the important question that was asked, JSX. Now we have JSX. Again, I can explain earlier, the difference between JS and JSX is that if I come to my JS here and I say span, it doesn't tell me anything. But when I come here, because JSX, it is both the combination of both JavaScript and HTML elements. I now have the ability, and I have access to all my HTML elements in the HTML documentation. So if I say div now, you can see it's giving me this div. If I say span, it's giving me span. If I say header, it's creating a header element for me. But on my .js, if I say span, it does not know what span is. If I say header, it does not know what header is. It is not giving me the ability, no suggestion to auto-complete it. So that is what basically JSX is. It's giving you the ability to actually use all your HTML elements inside of it. So now, looking at this and you guys now understanding the difference between JS and JSX, you should be able to separate your JS file from your what? JSX file. What does that mean? That might be a question at the end, but what does that mean? How do you separate JS and JSX file? When I mean separate, I don't mean you don't use them together. You can use them together. But when creating your components that you use together and your functions that you're using together, what is JS and what is JSX? Using as you guys now are now coming into the React world and you're stepping your feet inside, it could be known that JS, you can use your JS to actually display functions or use it to make interactivity for on a separate file that you cannot use across your application. While JSX, anything you want to create a div or you want to create a span or you are returning an HTML element, it is advisable for you to use .jsx. So that is basically what JS is and JSX. We are going to use JS for Jethro.
Yes, sir. So when we were learning about modules in JavaScript, we were taught how to do this importation and exportation, and then we created files outside our main JS, which was the main file in which we interact with. But here, the app.js, from what I observed, is the main file, and then the JSS file is where we put our functions and then import them to the app.js. But are we limited to what we can do in the app.js? And is that why we have to go and make a JSS file outside for us to do what we are supposed to do there? Or why is it that we cannot do the interactions in the app.js file?
Very, 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 very nice and wonderful questions. So, very, 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 very important question, dear Jethro. Again, how do I say this? Developer A and developer B and developer C are all given a task. developer A, developer B, and developer C are all given a task to build, let me say, an animation website. So I want the three of them to build a website where when I go to the landing page, I see some animations on the first section, the second section, okay, attendance link. Okay, the second section, I see another sort of animation, and the third section, I see some other sort of animation. These are three individuals separate on their own. They are doing their own work. But when they come together to showcase their work, they all showcased the same thing. Developer A, on his first section, he showed the animation. The website was flowing well. His second section, the same thing. Same thing with developer B and same thing with developer C. But now, we now went into their code. Developer A did all his animation and his website on app.js. Developer B, he broke it down into two separate components, section A, section B. Developer C, he broke it down into section A, section B, section C. He now have another file for animation. What am I trying to say there? I am trying to say is you are your limitation. In the sense that anything you want to do, you can actually do it. This thing that I just did here, of this header, I can just lift it, bring it here, and actually put it here. It is still the same thing. But now, we are now building application. We are building websites. And as developers, we are being judged on how we structure our application. That is the reason why, if we go back to the React documentation if we go back to the landing page, here, we can see thumbnail. Now, you guys understand the concept of components. You can see this thumbnail is coming from a separate component. Like button is coming from a separate component. But it is just used to render this one. Why didn't they just put it inside here and render it there? Why do they have to go there? That is to tell you what React is about. It is the ability for you as a developer to actually create components, functions, use your intuitive and interactiveness to actually see it. What you're doing. Number one, you're solving a problem. How do you want to solve the problem? What is the right way to go about solving the problem? Now, Jethro question is asking, why can't we do everything inside app.js? Are we limited? No, you are not limited. But if I see developer A doing everything in app.js and I see developer B breaking down each section into multiple components and is importing it into app.js, making app.js a standalone that is rendering all those components, I know who my developer is that I'm going to bring on my team. So the bottom line of that is that you are not limited. You can actually do everything you want inside app.js, but it is not advisable. As a developer, you should always embrace the concept of function, of components, of breaking down components into tiny bits, putting it together, making your application. And again, I did not say you want to render my video. You now go and create a file called my video, and all what you are exporting from there, it is just this text, my video. Like this is not it. You don't need all this big work for just something as little as this. If you come back to this React their example, thumbnail, as you can see, is interactive that you're using to play a video. If we were able to go into this thumbnail to see how it works, we will see that this component is actually doing some things. It is not just rendering just this screen and this play button. It is handling when you click on the play button, what happens. It is handling when you finish watching the video, what happens. It is also handling other things, but it is now being separated into a separate component that is now being rendered inside here. Same with the like video. Now, how do I drop this guy? Oh my God. If I close this, does that end the call? No? Okay. You guys are still hearing me? Yeah, I want to close this guy at the right hand side here. Okay. So now if I come now, this my exactly now look at this my like button. I am clicking it. It is liking, it is performing some animation that is happening, but it is its own separate component. That does not mean I cannot come and do everything about this like button inside this video component. I can still do it. But as a developer and as also a React enthusiast, that is giving you the ability to break down your app into various components. It is now you as a developer that know what is being needed to be broken. You can see exactly the perfect example. This example, they did not break H3 inside a separate component just to show my video. No, it is just rendering a text. You don't need something as complex as that for that. You can just write it basically inside of it. So that is just an example of what Jethro, the question that Jethro is asking. You are not limited. Also, you are not limited, if that is the correct way to put it. It is just you as a developer and also the project you are building. So if I'm building just a landing page that just shows the big, okay, let me use exactly. Now, let me use this as an example. I have this nav bar at the top. I have this hero section. I have this other section. I have this, my notable clients. I have this footer. Nothing is stopping me from putting all of them inside this app. I will just come here and say, div. I create the header section. As I'm done, I go to create the footer. But from a developer's point of view, it is not advisable for you to do that. Are we all together? I think I need this thing so I can see who is raising their hand or who is not. So are we all together? Jethro? Okay, so again, you are not limited, and it's basically you. And the example of the 3 developers that I gave, A, B, C. A did it the same way, B did it the same way, C did it. What they did on my browser, it is showing the same thing. But when I went to their code, it is different implementation of how they did it. Now, that is actually going to come into play here. Every single one of you is going to build application where we're going to go through the code one after the other to see every single thing, make corrections about one another, and actually improve on our skills. So that being said, that is about creating GSX. That is about creating functions. That is about exporting it. That is about importing it. That is about rendering it. Again, you guys are familiar with CSS. I am not good. I am not a friend of native CSS. I use Tailwind. So my CSS is going to be very, 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 very bad. If I had Tailwind, it would have been very, very easier to do this. So your CSS, if I come here, app.css, I can just say .test. It'll be long I wrote this, but let's see. I can say text. Is it text size? I mean font size. Font size. I can say 30 pixels. I can say the color. I want to give it red. Okay. So if I come here and I put my class name and I say test, right? I also need to import app.css, I think. Dude, I'm not good with CSS, man. Okay, I think it's, yeah, app.css is only for this guy, is it? Let's try it out and see. We are going to, let's see if you guys are familiar with Tailwind. If you're not, I'm going to have to sharpen my CSS skills then for this class. But let's see. Okay, that works. My video, and it's now red. So you can see how that is going to work. Now I can now have multiple. Let me remove this. and let me put a parent div, and let me also put a div for video, and let me see another div, class name, same test, and let's see test. Let's give this one a class name, and let's say wrapper, something like that. So let's go back here and let's define our wrapper class. Let's see display flex. Bro, I am flex. If you flex is side by side, if you say flex direction, flex direction, yeah. Flex direction, we say column. And let's just give it a gap of, oh my God. Okay, so let's just, bro, I am done with native CSS, man. Nah, it's not me. What is, why am I even stressing? You guys should help me out. How do you define a gap on your CSS?
Use gap.
You said?
Use gap property, gap.
Gap. There's a gap
That's it.
property.
Gap G.
Okay. Let me say 20 pixels. You guys will have to use Tailwind for this, or else you guys will write all the CSS in this.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Will waste some time.
You said?
I think adding Tailwind will waste some time. Let's just use CSS for the class. Maybe next time.
This is what I like. You see, until when you now go into the world of Tailwind and you now see that Tailwind is more fun. But let's go on for now. I was also saying this too. When you have a bunch of things to do and you can't be going to files and be coming back. Okay, so now you can see now we have rendered our test and we have rendered our video. So we have basically done the introduction to React. We now understand how to install React, how to start up React, how to clean up React. So when you install React for the first time, it gives you that boilerplate. Now I have cleaned it and I have changed it to import test. Now I have a class name here called .app, which is center aligning it for me. If I clean this, I don't want it to be center aligned, and I clean this class name. I do this, and I do this. Now it should be going to the left hand side. Yeah, so that is working. So now we know about functional components, how to create functional components, how to import functional components, how to export it, and how to render JSX. So all these are very, very important in our React introduction. So understanding React and how React works. So this can also be personally, when I ventured into React for the first time, I was super, super confused. I did not understand what was going on. So that can also happen to each and every one of you. I just want you guys to know that, okay, you can ask as many questions as you want and it can be cleared out, and let's make this experience wonderful for everybody. So I think we are 2 hours into the class now, and sorry, Phytech admin, how many hours does the class hold? Is it still here?
It's for 3 hours, 9 to 12.
9 to 12. Okay, so that means we can do 30 minutes more development and 30 minutes questions, and because I want to hear everybody's voice here. So the remaining, how many of us are here? I think we have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 of us, we are going to ask questions. So those of you hiding at the back of the class, my backbenchers, get ready to come to the front. Okay, so that aside, let's now go into let's create another new file. Let me also walk you guys through who is leaving the call. Ayomide, I said I was going to call you, now you're leaving the call. Okay, no problem. I was wrong for saying that out loud. I'll be calling names now. So let's create a new file. Let me call this one. Let me call my good old friend. Let me say tally.jsx. Okay, now there is a component called tally.jxs, and I have created a function called tests, and I've rendered it inside here. But does that mean all my components will now be rendered inside app? Is that what it means? Now let's find out. I'm not using this import. Let me clear it. So now I have a component called tally.js. Now I want to introduce you guys on another way of creating your components. Here and here we are using function, which is very, very right. You can use your function to actually create that. But there is also another way to create your component, and it's with the what? The constant variable. I have a constant. I give it a name, tally. I put my equals to and my parentheses. Then I return it. This is also another way of writing what? Functional components. This and this are basically more the same thing. They are returning the same thing. Now, if I come here and I put div and I say tally, what's your last name? Okay, let's just say tally. Now, constant, the name of the file, equals to parentheses, equals to your greater than sign, then you open it and you return. I know it's a bit more longer than this. You guys will prefer to use this one, but anyone is fine. I'm just giving you a what you can also do. This one is also fine. You can also use this. And the same way, you can also default export it, tally. Now, the question that I asked when I was starting this, does that mean all our components that we're creating, we must always render it inside app.js? Is that what this means? No. You can create components and render it where needed. That is a very, very important terminology, where needed. So you're not going to create component for footer and you say you want to import it in navbar. It's where you need it. But this is just an example. If I come here and I render tally, and I close tally, I can do autocomplete. It's telling me where tally is coming from. I save it, and I go back to my web application. I can see tally's name here. So it works the same way. Functional components can be created using the function keyword or the constant keyword. They can also be exported the same way, either default or you export it like this. So this should throw an error. Again, why is it throwing an error? We know why, because the way it is being imported is exporting it as the default, but it is a standalone component. If we do this, it should be back and working fine. So that is very, very straightforward. So two ways of creating your components. You can either use a functional name, and you can also use tally and a component. Now, let's clean this. Let's clean this. And let's clean this. So now we have been creating components since, and we have been rendering it. I don't want to go into event actions today. I just want us to walk through the introduction. If you have any question about the introduction. So now when creating functions or file names or component name in React, it is very, very important that you follow the rules. So React has a lot of rules. When I mean not a lot, but React has rules that you need to abide by when you want to use it. Now, rule number one in function is if I create a function here and I say tally and I return tally here and I say div and I say tally. And I say tally and I export tally like this. If I come here and I import tally here, and let me render tally like this. I've saved it. I am not seeing tally's name here. This tally, it is not being shown here. Why? It should actually even throw an error, but it did not, but that's fine. And you can see I am reading it. I imported it and I applied it here, but it is still telling me that it is not being read. What does that mean? It is trying to tell me that in React, when you are creating functional components that are going to be rendered, it has a special convention of how you're going to name it. You do not start the name with small letter. Very, very important. If you want to render it, what do we mean by render? If you want to import it like this and render it on the screen, you do not use small letter to actually name it. But you can create your function, call on submit. Let's say you want to submit a form. You can see this starts with a small letter. Fine. This one, it is good. I can say test. This function, I will not come inside test now and I said I want to render on submit like this. This is very, very wrong. This function starts with a small letter, meaning it is not a renderable component. We do not render it, but it's the function that we can use to perform some actions. So that is just a rule number one that we should keep in mind. When we are creating components that we are going to render, we should not start it with a small letter. We should also always keep in mind that renderable components starts with a capital letter like this, and it should always be returned. Do not forget this return keyword. This return keyword is very, very important when you want to return an HTML element in React. So that is number one. Now, after we've done that, you guys are familiar with CSS. The next step is state management. And I don't want to start state management now. I want to start state management in the afternoon, but I just want us all to be familiar with what we have done since 9 o'clock. So questions can start coming in while I will be calling on names to explain some methodologies for us that we have discussed since morning, so we are familiar with what we have done. So everybody, we have, let's say, 10 minutes to ask questions. If you have your questions, you can raise up your hand and ask your questions. If you don't have your questions, I have a bunch of questions I want to ask you people, and I have some friends here that I want to ask those questions. Okay, number one, the first person is Rufai Usman. Rufai.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, okay.
Are you guys hearing him?
So
I can hear you.
yeah, my question is you talked about when okay. When you're talking about JS and JSX.
Yeah.
So I want you to please try and tell us you are saying is it a difference?
Yeah, I can hear you. You say JS and JSX.
Okay. Okay, yeah, yes. So can you please try and explain this thing again, the difference again, please? Then the second one is when you're talking about if you want to create this thing, a React web page newly that you've not done such before.
Okay. Okay.
So
I think we should do that
you
before the
didn't.
class
I
ends,
think
right?
yes, yes, sir.
It seems like the mentor is having network issue. So can anyone hear me? Can you guys hear me? Just drop some some emojis. Okay, cool. So now I don't know if Ufa is here. Ufa, are you still with us with regards to your question? Okay, Ufa have dropped out of the call. Also especially small what network lot challenge and by challenges. So now I'm back to his question that he asked. GSX and GX is just like so that you guys were being taught what is it called, JavaScript. Your extension is what .js. That the JS now is just for JavaScript code only. Why JSX is just by JavaScript what extension that can create both HTML, CSS, and what JavaScript code in it. That's just the difference between both of them. Do you guys get? Do you guys get? Drop some emoji. Let me know. Let me know. Okay, cool. So now
Are you
the
guys
mentor is
hearing me?
back. The mentor is back now. So you can take over from where I stop.
Okay, Ebube, okay. Ebube, what's up?
I'm fine.
Well done. All right.
So and you can go ahead. So I just need explaining for them the difference between JSX and JS.
All
But
right.
you can continue. Mhm.
Okay, so my screen, you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, it's very visible.
All right. So again, Rufai, you said JS and JSX. Again, know that no tally. Hello. Okay. So now know that a .js in a React application is telling you that okay, you are creating a JavaScript file. That is just can't see me your screen.
He should log out and log in again. It's network from his own end.
Okay, Tali, I think you should drop and join again because I'm showing my VS code. You are seeing as I'm scrolling, Ebube.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. All right. So the JS.js in a React application is you are just trying to tell React that I have created a JavaScript file. This is a JavaScript file. You can also return HTML elements inside that JavaScript file. You can also create functions, JavaScript functions to do stuff on click. So you are basically telling it that I have created a .js file. Again, .css, you can come into .css and say you want to start creating function. You can see there's no even autocomplete for function. Why? Because .css file is expecting you to open something like this. Do not use empty rule set. So that is like trying to tell you that each file name are independent to what they can do. .js is a JavaScript file in a React application where you can use to create your functions and also return your HTML element. But JSX, again, when I was doing it, I was showing you guys an example of how I don't have the full HTML flow in my .js. If I want to create a header, for example, I don't have it inside this file because it's a JS. It does not know HTML, but it can render HTML. If I now go to my JSX file, JSX is the combination of both JavaScript. I can come here to create my functions. Everything is going to work fine. On click, let's say I have a function inside here to actually render some alerts on the top when I perform this action on click. And I can also still come in here to create an header. You can see it's also giving me a JSX autocomplete, which has the ability to display all your HTML elements. That is just the difference between JS and JSX. They are also there are also differences between them, but they are just minors. But that is just the major differences between the JS and the JSX. JSX is just telling you that okay, this file is returning HTML. You can use it to render or return HTML. But my JS file, I can delete all of this I can remove all of this and I can just start creating random function to do stuff. Submit form. Submit form. Yeah, this will work. Or this is my JS file. It's using to render JavaScript. So all the JavaScript you guys have learned so far, you can use it to render in here. Same with the, now for the GSX, I can also do that while I can also return JavaScript with the autocomplete of all my HTML elements. This can also do that, but it does not recognize your HTML blah blah blah. So now, judging by this difference between GS and GSX, when creating applications, web apps, interactive applications, when creating websites, interactive websites, you should know which can be JS and which can be GSX. So it's not everything that has to be GSX and it's not everything that has to be GX. There has to be some files that are just for interactivity, that are just for displaying some stuff, while there are also some GSX files for displaying your HTML and rendering your code to the browser. So that is the basic difference between JS and JSX. And when we are working on tags and creating interactivity and all the rest, we will now start creating JS file that does not return HTML like this. They just return functions that we are using to do stuff. So along the way, down the line of the React classes, we should be able to achieve all of that. So another question. Is anybody raising their hand? Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Jethro?
Yes, sir. I need more clarity on function because I noticed that for whatever we are doing in React, we write a function and then whatever interaction or interactivity that we want to do, we do it just within the function by using the return keyword. So does that mean that all what we are doing in React is imbibed in a function? Without the function, there is nothing that is going to be functional. Let me put it that way.
That can, you can actually say that is right. So since what we've been doing, since everything that we've been doing, that we've been rendering and seeing on our screen, we are creating this word function, the name of the function. We are opening it and we are returning it. What if I just come here and I say test? Oh yeah, test appear on the screen. Will this show on the screen? No. If I save this, I should even get an error. Yeah, it's actually showing me an error because expected an assignment. It needs to be assigned to something. It needs to know what is rendering it. So in the world of React, it is functions are basically what is React. Everything that you're doing, that's why I say 80%, not everything. You can also create JSON files, you can create test files that doesn't need function. But when you want to interact with the browser, you have to create a function and you have to return it. Now, if we create function and say on submit, this function, I am not doing my return. I am just alerting a test. And I said, don't do that. And I said alert test. The difference between this and this is this function is renderable. I can render this function.
Okay, guys, the attendance have been dropped. You guys can fill the attendance. Seems like the mentor is having a little network challenge. So let's be patient for him. We'll join back very soon.
I don't think there is a general network glitch. And
Yes. So sorry, let me just chip in something before you join back. So one good thing about React is just that at the time you guys were being taught by HTML, CSS, and what and JavaScript, you guys created different files for it. But one thing with React is that it works with what they call what components, and that component can render all those files inside a single component, and it's going to work. That's the fun part about JavaScript. Sorry, about React. And React is very was much more faster than your formal way of writing your code. So that's just one good thing about React. So let's be patient for him to join. Or if you have any other question that don't require code, you can ask me so I can put you through. Yeah, you can go ahead, Mr. Jetro.
Sir Ebube, I noticed something with three concepts that we learned, and then I want to be inquisitive about it because when we were learning frameworks in CSS, we learned about XCSS and block element modifiers, in which we were able to create variables, mixins, and extents. And then that was the first place I think we saw the concept of import and exporting of the variables, mixins, and then extents in CSS. Now, when we came, and the main reason there, I think, was because there was a transpiler, or is it a compiler, that converts our the SCSS to CSS so that we'll have a more cleaner and manageable CSS. And then when we came to JavaScript, we did modules and classes, modules to be specific. And then we learned about the import and export again. And then now in React, we are still doing import and export. So my concern is that the import and export, is it basically in general, because from what I noticed, is it just for managing how clean your codes will be, or there is something that comes with it apart from that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. So now in React now, anything you want to make use of in your in your component, you have to import it. You have to import it. That's but mostly React works with import was statement. So now that one that you have to create a component using a function like I'm coming, Mr. Rufai. Just like a function, you create a function, you have to export it. That export statement there serves as so that the React app can detect what you have done in that your component. If you not export it, you're not going to render on the browser. Do you get, Mr. Jet? That is just why the import statement is being used in React. Also, that export to statement in React. Do you get, Mr. Jet? Mr. Jet?
Yes, I'm clear now. I'm clear.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Upa, you can go ahead before the mentor will continue.
Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi is a bit far from where I am, so it's just tripping off. It's in the office.
It's everywhere, we understand. So, Mr. Upa, I can ask your question before the mentor will continue. Mr.
No, actually, what
Rufai,
happened is that I don't know where.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I said actually I don't know. I asked the question the other time, so I don't know whether he had me because I had a serious network issue. So I don't know whether he had me at all. I'm not sure.
Is it the JS and JSX?
Yes, with the React with the React setting up of React because I just even had to
Okay,
connect to my phone
the
now.
setting up of... Are you hearing me?
God.
Yes, we can hear you.
No, Rufai, is Rufai hearing me? Are you hearing me clearly?
I think I'm hearing you now. Yeah.
For the setting up of React, we're going to do that again together at the end of the class. But for now, we're just taking questions and interacting. So for the JS and JSX, I've already explained it. But if you are with me now and you're hearing me, we can just take it again. Just make sure.
If you know, okay.
You said?
Maybe you can just I'll watch the recording later. I'll watch the recording later so as not to take you guys back. What?
Okay, no problem. Who has a question on what we have done on the introduction again today, so we can walk through how to create a React app from scratch? Anybody? Okay. Since you guys are not there, so let me go through the members column and see who I want to call out. Noah. Good morning, brother. Is Noah with us? Hello,
Yes, sir.
Noah,
I'm here. I'm here. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, introduction to React. Can you now build a website with React? Come on.
Yeah, I'm actually a newbie, but I'm actually learning, and I know with more practice, I'll become very good at it because I'm someone who is very determined. So at
Yeah,
least I know
so
the background and I know the basis. So making more research, watching more videos on YouTube and all sorts, and also making very good use of AI to learn more. So
yeah.
that's what I do after every class. So
Okay.
definitely, I know that I'll be very handy with it.
Okay, so by the afternoon class, you're the one that is going to take us then.
Nice joke, sir.
we have Noah for afternoon class. Okay, that's actually perfect. Very, very perfect. Yeah, Fahad.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Fahad.
My question is how are you going to generate those files? So, because I noticed that for you to develop a website, you have to generate those files.
Sorry,
So are you the one
your
who generate? Are you, okay, sir?
your line is breaking. I'm not hearing you properly.
Okay.
You said generate which files?
Okay, to generate the starting files.
Yeah, we are going to walk through that at the end. We're going to create a new React project from scratch.
Okay.
All right.
All right. All
So,
right. Okay, sir. No, thank you.
okay, so we're going to see how that will work. Why are people dropping? Where are all the ladies I was seeing here since? Okay, Miss Aisha Kabir. Good morning,
Yes,
ma.
sir. Good morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma. Introduction to React. How are we? How are we going?
So far, yes, sir. All what you did, I grabbed all of it, but I'll look into it after the class. I'll also watch the recording and some YouTube videos also to learn more about the React. But so far, so good, sir.
Okay, okay. So in the afternoon class, when we come for afternoon class, you should be able to build a website then.
Sir, you'll be
Yes.
the leader and guide now.
No, not leader and guide. You will when after Noah has finished taking the class, you will now build a website for us. Okay, that's
Sir,
perfect,
you are
Aisha.
the expert.
Okay, so let's just make sure everybody is following and everybody is gaining one or two here. Who again is here? Oche. Good morning, Mr. Oche. Chen. Mr. Oche, are you with us? Okay. Let's go to the next person. Miss Fatima, good morning. Good morning, Ma. Are you with us? Okay. I can see she cannot talk properly. Okay, Tali. Hello, Tali. Are you hearing me? Hello, can you guys hear me? Tali?
Yes, I can hear you. Maybe having a little network challenge.
Tali,
Okay, he
you're
said he's
talking.
talking, but we cannot hear him.
We cannot hear what you're saying. Your network. Okay, so before we round up this class, let's just walk through how we can create a new React app from scratch, and let's see how everything is being installed and what is going to come for the first time. So now let's do that and end the class. And for in the afternoon, we will now start looking at interactivity and basically go a little bit more deep into React and how we can use React to build websites and web applications.
Hello, boss. Can you hear me now?
Charlie, your line is breaking.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My concern is I noticed all the things that we've been working on, we are all rendering it in app.js, and that
Yeah.
we are all rendering all what we've been and working on in app.js, and that app.js is what is being displayed on the browser. Does
Yeah.
it mean we have been working on a single page application? And if that's so, how can we able to create multiple slides? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like create multiple pages whereby we can switch from one page to another page without rendering it as a single page.
Yeah. So that is part of what we're going to talk about either on Thursday or later today. But for now, it's basically just the introduction. We're going to do page routing, props passing, and state management later on in the course. But we are trying to get familiar with React here. So, Tali, we're going to talk about page navigation later on. But for now, your app.js, it is your base page for what you're seeing on the screen. But like I said earlier, and the explanation I gave and the reference I made about the 3 developers creating websites, you can choose to break it down, what you display on that page, or you can choose to do everything on that page. The same way, if you want to create another page, you can choose to make one file the base page of everything, or you can break down pages into components. The content of the page is into components. So there has to be one thing that is housing the page and the rest. Okay, so that is that. So now let's walk through how we can set up our React application from scratch. And with that, we can call the class, and we were going to see again around 3 p.m. All right. You guys, if you can see my screen, just give us a thumbs up. So let's see. Let's know we're working together here.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. All right. So let's close this. Let's close this. Let me open this and okay. Okay, so let's basically close all of this we've been working on since. We're going to come back to this in the afternoon, but let's close it for now. So let's open a new one. So basically, if you're starting a React project from scratch, you open your VS Code, a blank VS Code like this. And most importantly, you know the folder that you want to create that file in. You open your folder, you go to the folder where you want to open it from. So there's a folder here called File Tech. I've opened it. Okay, so I have, let's not do this. Let's do that again. I don't want to open all the File Tech. I want to open only the real estate. Okay, so again, you open the folder. You have not opened the folder yet. You open the folder, you go inside the folder, and you see. So this is the one we have been working on since. If you see my React app, you can see it has node modules, public, and you can see you're not seeing package or JSON, all those rest. So you have, this is what we've been working on since. Now let's go into this, my real estate, and let's create a new React app. So you can see it's pretty much empty. And now we have our terminal. It's pointing to real estate. Again, if you want to create a new React app, you run npx, create React app, then the name of the React app. But since we want to call our own real estate, meaning we are in the base name, I just put a full stop. But if real estate is a folder that wants to house multiple React apps, then you can now give it the name like real estate 1, something like that, which is the name of the application. But me, the name of my application is this base real estate. So I'll just put a full stop here and then import it. So now this is going to take a while because it's actually downloading. Okay, cannot name it because of npm naming restriction. Now look, this is a real error that we're actually seeing from React. We cannot name an application. I think it's starting with capital letter. That is the issue that we're having. So real estate, it is not allowing us, can no longer contain capital letter. Yeah, so that's the error. So now let's do that again. So I'm repeating this so you guys can understand the process multiple times. You open your blank VS Code, you go to open, you go to the document. Now, PyTech, you go into PyTech. Let's delete this. So let's create a new one. Let's call it real estate. Okay, so now let's select this folder. Now we are inside real estate. Again, you can open your terminal by dragging it from the bottom here, or you can open your terminal from here. So once you are in your terminal, make sure you are in the file that you're working on. So you can see mine is real estate. Then I copy this npx create React app. The spelling has to be very, very accurate with the spacing in between. I'm putting full stop because I want the name of my app. I want my app to live inside here. I do not want to create another folder for it. So that's why I'm doing this. If you press enter, and if the installation has started successfully, you can see it will tell you it is creating a new React app in your folder. This could take a couple of minutes. So let's just wait for it to finish. And you can see the dependencies and the libraries that it's installing. It's installing React, React DOM, React script, and also your create React app template. So let's just watch it finish and come back because it might take a while. And my network is far away from me, which can also impact the speed. So while we're waiting for it to finish, I will imply everybody to have your VS Code ready, and you should create a React application for the afternoon class. So after the call, after the class, then we can now start going through everybody's code, and everybody will have to do one or two things. So this will, you have to be practical. It's not just what Noah and Aisha said about watching videos. You're not just going to go and keep watching videos. If you keep watching videos, the videos, you look as if, yeah, you can do it and all the rest, but you have to practice what you're watching and what you're learning. That is how you get good at it. You make mistake, you go back, you check, you come back, you do it on your own, you make mistake, you go back, you check. That is how we become good, not perfect. Web development, you can't be perfect. So that's how we learn here. So exactly, our application has successfully installed, and you can see it's installing the last template. And now, if you go through your VS Code, if you see my right hand here, I'm coming. Let me zoom. Let me zoom this exactly. So you can see I have this download module file that it's you don't do anything here. I have the public file where we store our assets like images, fonts, JSON files, then our SRC that we have seen before. You can see this one is pure, doesn't have that TXX that we have created. Our git ignore, package.json, package.json lock, and our README file. So again, how do you start your React application? You go to your JSON file and you go to your script section. It's telling you for you to start it, you run npm start. So once you do that, you come and you say npm start. What this does is going to run it for you on your local 3000. And that should actually start your application from scratch. So all warnings, and you can see it has opened the application, and you wait for it to load, and it is pointing to localhost 3000. So this is different from the one we created earlier. The one we've created earlier, I have closed it. This is not it. This is a fresh React application from scratch. If you want to build any website, you want to build any application, this is how you start it. You create all this from scratch. So you can see it has taken us back to the first screen that we saw. And if you go here, you can see all those code that we cleaned before are now back. You can see our let's start with the public, the index.html. You can see this React app. We changed it earlier to real estate. Let's do that again. We save it. Then we come to our index.js. We render the app from the app.js, which is rendering the logo, the edits, this, and then React. So if I change this, we can now do the same. Welcome to React course. So that's basically it. And that is how you start and you can see it has successfully changed here. So that is where we're going to stop for this morning class. And I can see the rest of us have been asking questions about what about some advanced terminologies on React. So that's to tell us that most of you are already going ahead and listening and learning, which is very, very nice. So in the afternoon, we're going to continue and we're going to talk about state management. We can look into routing. And please, I want everybody to get their laptop and the VS Code ready, because as we are learning, we're going to be practicing, which is going to help us become strong. So your questions that you're asking, try it out first. If it doesn't work, then you bring it on, you ask the question, and we're going to solve it together. So we're going to build, at the end of this, hopefully your other mentors, we can come together and build something very, very nice, but I am not writing the CSS. Okay, so that's that. And Ebube, how do you guys? Ebube, let me hand over to you from here. So
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Abdul. So now, guys, welcome to React. React is very, very nice and sweet to work with. So now I don't know with time, Mr. Jet will respond. So So by with time, but if you guys are set to build some project, I can source for you a Figma file. I'll send to you guys. I mean, in form of a team. If you guys are willing to do it, I can do that one for you guys. So let me just share some words. Give me some words from some emoji if you're interested in it. Can you hear me? Okay, no problem, no problem. So let's say from next week, by the time you guys have now to set up your React app, I'll be searching for you guys some Figma files. I'll send you guys personally to your DMs, not on the group chat. So you guys can work with it. Then I can put you guys through in where you're like sort of confused with it. So with that, you can easily building up your portfolio website, which can easily show to what your employer in the future to come. So that's all from my own side. So secondly, thank you, Mr. Abdul. And it was really a nice section. Thumbs up for our mentor. See you guys during the afternoon class. Bye from my own end.
Okay, talk to you guys later in the afternoon. Yeah, Rufai?
Actually, I wanted to direct my question to Mr. Ibubi.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
can hear you. I'm still on
I
the
will drop
call.
now and join in the afternoon.
Okay, no problem. But no problem, Mr. Abdul. Thank you very much once again.
Bye.
So, Mr. Rufai, I'm hearing your question.
Yeah, actually, because I had our mentor saying when we meet in the afternoon we'll continue. So I thought because I actually don't have time in the afternoon to join the class, so that's why I used to choose morning session. So I
Yeah,
don't.
that room is I was just like, oh, my surprise. He mentioned the same thing. But I will go through the curriculum if you be the same mentor that you was on the afternoon was session. So I'll let you guys know. Because sometimes a mentor can take both morning and afternoon session by the same person. So if it's the same mentor, you will love to continue for where he stopped this morning. So that is just the
Okay.
issue.
Then maybe you can just allow the recordings to be fast then, so that we can be watching it so as to meet up. Because I don't used to have time in the afternoon to join the class.
Okay, no problem. If it's with regards to the by recording, I'll follow up with the person that's in charge of it to drop for you guys
Okay.
on time on the Discord channel.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome very much. So let us do have a nice day. See you guys around 3 p.m. Bye for now.